Hey everyone, Scott here for another episode of In Post, and today we're going to look at some of the pain that went into making that lighthouse photo I showed you earlier in the week. So if you saw the episode of In the Field with the old Point Loma Lighthouse, I talked about what I had done on scene and how I got impatient and I changed up my camera a little bit between, to shoot something else that I shouldn't have done. I got impatient, I got distracted, I don't know, OCD maybe a little bit, who knows. But I was able to put together, the shots that I wanted to get an image that I came away with, happy. And so let me show you some of the things that went into the post-production of trying to put together two images taken from very slightly different angles. So let's go over the computer and take a look at that.
So here are a few of the images that I took over the course of this afternoon, and I'll just walk through them one by one. So you can see this is the main composition that I wanted. People are moving about, coming in and out of the frame. Go to the next one, you can see people shift around. This one here, the clouds are starting to take shape, and the light actually came on the lighthouse. And the sun's at a good angle now. We're getting the oranges starting to show up here, and the side of the hill is catching the last rays of light. There, the sun's gone down a little bit farther. People are moving around. This is about the point where I looked away, shot something else because the clouds to camera right looked interesting at the time, and when I came back, I had, the beautiful sky going on that I wanted. But you can notice the shift in perspective, right? It's, very obvious here. And it's hard to gauge that completely on the LCD. But I wanted to get all these together into a single image. So the top four, these ones here as people move about the ridges, those would be pretty simple, just removing tourists, like for example, these folks here in the previous frame. There's not as many of them. The next frame, there's not nobody here at all. And I have a different tutorial video on how to brush away tourists from a sequence of shots. But this last frame, getting the sky and those purples and pink tones in, that was the problem. So I'm going to get all these loaded over into the Perfect Photo Suite and then show you how I was able to, kind of beat this into submission. So in the Perfect Photo Suite, I took those first several shots and did some tourist removal and ended up with this layer here where all the people have been removed from the scene. Again, I have a different tutorial on that you can go take a look at for the techniques there. Then I set about how to bring in this image, which is with the sky. And you can see that what I ended up doing is the alignment on the house is pretty much nailed now. So I would lower this top opacity a bit, and with the bottom layer selected, I used the transform tool. I did a little bit of scaling, and I did a little bit of repositioning, and I focused on lining up the house. Cancel that. Because I was not going to be able to get everything lined up. You saw in the previous clip there was some significant shift, not just in the house. I was my focal length was a little bit wider, so the house was smaller. I had to scale it up. And let me show you what I mean. So if I zoom in at 100%, here we are at 100%. I'm going to highlight my top layer, bring it all the way up to 100% opacity. Watch the edges of the house. I'm going to lower it down, and now we're looking at this bottom layer, right? I can turn this off. Turn it on, you see no change. I'll bring it all the way back up. That's looking pretty good. I aligned the house very well. Now let's look over at the tree. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to bring this opacity down. And watch here, you see the shift? Right here at the trunk. As I move that opacity of this top layer, you can see there's a shift in the tree. The tree is swaying, the tree is moving. And there was no way I was going to get alignment on every one of those little leaves. And in retrospect, I wasn't going to get that anyway, because there's wind and there's breezes. So once I got the layers lined up like this, what I did is I duplicated my layer with the nice sky, the sunset sky. And I have that here. And you'll notice the big tree is missing, right? I got all of this stuff cloned away, and it was just through a series of using the clone stamp tool and the erase tool to work my way through this tree and just get it eliminated from the frame. And you'll notice here too, in this area, the cloning is a little messy, right? Those clouds don't line up, and that's okay, because when I lay over my top image, which has the nicely lit house, the nicely lit cliff face, I'm bringing back in the tree, and it's covering up my messiness there. So that was a little trick there. So now when I zoom in, see there's no problem with this tree here. I can do that same trick, and oops, wrong layer. I can do that same trick, and you'll just see that tree disappear. You watch the ground shift, and that's okay, because I'm having 100% on the ground. And so then, really with the with this image here, let me see, this layer is essentially the same as this layer here, this bluish sky. I just masked away all of the sky and all around the tree and everything. That's what you see here, this layer mask where the foreground, the lighthouse, and the tree have all been kept, and the sky has been masked away. So with the sky masked away, the lower layer being my nice sunset sky, presto changeo, there is the sunset. This is essentially a sky replacement, although I used the sky that happened to be there 10 minutes after I had taken my initial shots. So with that type of work done, and this took, I don't know, a half an hour, 40 minutes of fiddling and adjusting and nudging, a lot more work than it should have been if I had just kept my composition fixed, took a bunch of frames. I think I still would have had to clone away that tree just to get a nice blend and not have any motion blur in the tree. Although, who knows, the motion blur may have looked nice, a little bit dreamy. In any event, once I had that done, it was taking these two layers, making a new stamped layer, which I have up at the top here, and then adding the stylization. So why don't I pop over into Perfect Effects and just show you, that's where most of the stylization happened, how we got from here to here. So in Effects, you can see I added a bunch of different layers. Those of you that followed my work, these look pretty similar: tone enhancers, color enhancers, dynamic contrast. Let me get rid of the navigator, Command 1, so we have a little more real estate for the options here. I'll start at the bottom. So here's the merged work that we brought in from layers. And first I added a tone enhancer. I started with the auto setting, and I believe I backed off the blacks a little bit. Those had come in too hot. And I boosted the detail and clarity just a little bit to get some crispness within the lighthouse, within the scrub, and the clarity for the edges along these cliff faces here. So that was a pretty straightforward. And then a color enhancer. This is really primarily the greens. So you'll notice the greens in the scrub pop more, and a little boost of warmth and a tiny bit of saturation for the oranges. And that was for these cliff faces here and this bit of ruddy colored sand along this way. Not too much of it affected the sky. There was a little bit of a boost, but not much. It also played up nicely on this tree here where the sunlight was shining on the tree there. So that's the color enhancer. Then for the adjustment brush. The adjustment brush was for detail. I just clicked the detail preset, but only painted it in on the lighthouse itself. So as I toggle this on and off, you can see the lighthouse is popping. And that's my subject. I want your eyes to be attracted to that. And so adding a little extra detail there, which adds contrasted edge, element of sharpening, and our eyes are going to be drawn to that sharp part. I went to the tone enhancer again, and this was predominantly for that twilight effect. And I like to do a twilight effect with the reds and the green channels, boosting the reds a little bit, dragging the greens down a little bit. Blue just remained nominal. But those two little changes really enhanced purples, and I liked what that did to the sky. And also it added a nice additional feel to the foreground as well. When I initially did this layer, this filter, I was anticipating just using it for the sky. When I saw what it did to the entire thing, it looked really nice. I just liked what it did there. Then it was dynamic contrast. That's really just adding that crispness. It was starting with natural, and I backed off the large a little bit. I didn't want to go over the top, and particularly didn't want the sky to get too crisp. And even looking at this now, I might have gone a little bit overboard with that dynamic contrast here. I might back that off again. It's one of the interesting things when you go back and look at your images a second or third time. Your mood changes, and then your tastes change. And finally, then a vignette. The vignette, I do custom work in the vignette. If you can learn about my technique of vignetting through my book or through some other videos that I've posted. So that's the stylization of this. I'm going to cancel that because I already have saved all this work. And that's really where we ended up. Oh, it looks like that contrast, I did back that off eventually. That must have been I did imperfect enhance. Look at that. So I wasn't too far off from what I was thinking then to what I was thinking now.
As you can see, that was a lot more involved than it really should have been. If I had kept my camera fixed, it might have been simpler. Actually, not might. It would have been simpler if I had kept the camera fixed and not changed things up. I would have been able to take the tree from the shot that was later, with the nice beautiful sky, and use that as my base point. Bringing in the center of the tree, like some of those center greens from another image, without getting to the edges where the leaves would start to blur, that would have been simpler, and I would have still been able to bring in some of those greens. But as it was, didn't do that, and again, I'll reiterate from like what I said on In the Field. The takeaway is, be patient, and if you've got a composition that you like and you've locked it in, stick with it, and it'll save you a lot of trouble later. There are some things that are wonderful about post-processing, and there are some things that just make it even easier if you get it right in camera. So that's it for this time around. I hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave comments. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about. If there's a technique or something in the video that you have a question about, that's a great thing to ask. Again, making this a two-way conversation, it helps feed me, helps me know that there's someone on the other side of this camera that's watching this stuff and hopefully benefiting from it. That's it this time around. I'll see you again soon. Bye.